Well, welcome everyone here. I appreciate people showing up. I'm sure that we're going to learn a lot from Susan today. She's definitely thought a lot about this really mystical and profound and joyous subject, actually. And today, our subject is Chit and Ananda, and Susan will explain about the relationship between the two and so forth. Last week, we learned about H.P. Blavatsky, a very fine presentation, and you can view that presentation on YouTube by typing in the search part of YouTube, Eternal Pilgrim, or the Eternal Pilgrim, I believe. And all of the presentations are available on YouTube. And next week, we will hear from Keith Pritchker about Shabbat and the covenant and the mystical meaning and the practical meaning of those ideas from the Jewish perspective. And he is a practicing Jewish person, but also a theosophist. So we'll see what that's like as an experience. These ongoing Aquarian Almanac meetings are kind of a continuity and a flow and a journey in and out of various wisdom traditions. And through them, we learn about theosophy, and hopefully theosophy itself shines a light on these wisdom traditions. So both are the light and the lit of one another from this perspective. So I just want, before we go on, I just wanted to throw a little bit of shine. It's time for some shine. And I want to talk about what Kurt and Susan have done for this series and just let them know how grateful I am for their dependability and their vision for seeing this through, and for their willpower in making all this happen. Kurt's the guy that writes all those incredibly evocative, brilliant notices for each one of these presentations. And each time I read one, I think, I want to go to that. That's very good. So, and he puts a lot of thought into those, and he's very much concerned about delivering theosophy to the newer and the future generations, as well as to those of us have had some time with theosophy as well. And I just want to say a personal note of gratitude to what Susan's done and her radiant and bright presence in all this, and her compassionate ability to help people understand the technology each time, because we're all still learning it. And I wanted to see if Kurt would like to say anything about Susan, because they are dear friends.
Yes, we are dear friends. And actually, it is an unlikely friendship from the perspective of I haven't known her all my life, right? We met at an astrology conference a year and a half ago. Is that how long it's been? Not quite?
Not quite.
Not quite. I lose all, so temporally, I have no clue what's going on in this universe anymore. I've lost all track of time. But at some point when I was an adult already, I met Susan at an astrology conference. And I like telling this story, so y'all are going to get to hear it. And I met her by her yelling at me, because she is a Young Living essential oils person, and I am a doTERRA essential oils person. And she immediately came to me and was like, what do you like about doTERRA? What's the big deal with doTERRA? Tell me about doTERRA. Because she is just, as we all know and love her to be, she's energetic, right? She's got rajas. And so that's how we met. And we started hanging out at, every time. I only went to like two of the workshops there, and I saw her in one of those two workshops, and we sat next to each other. And it was funny because afterwards she said, man, I had this ringing in my ears the whole time. And I actually thought to myself, is that because I was humming? And then she actually heard me humming as I was sitting next to her. Anyway, so I've known her for quite some time. and we've gotten to know each other really well. She actually, before she moved out, or when she moved out to San Diego, she actually stayed at my house for about 2 months. And again, having just met her several months before, she crashed out here until I could get her a place to live. And we've been good friends ever since. I value her wisdom, her opinions, her intuitions very much. We have very long, deep theosophical discussions about all this stuff. And so I'm excited to go ahead and hear what she's put together today when it comes to Chit and Ananda. So without further ado, Susan, take it away.
Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen. And I want to get everything set before I begin the play. Okay, so hopefully you will be able to see everything clearly and understand everything. And it really is an honor for me to give this presentation. I hold so much love for this subject. I get emotional because of what it means to me on a personal level. So without further ado, Chit and Ananda, the Path of Enlightenment. This is one of my favorite Rumi quotes, although I love everything Rumi. He's an amazing, I believe he was an enlightened Sufi poet. So that's what I believe. And so he said, "You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop." So it's really interesting, and it's so true. And I think that what I'm going to show with this presentation is just that. So this is the question, the fundamental question that I'm aiming to answer with this presentation. What is the nature of my existence? And I have a really cute picture there. It's like a symbol for the sun, but it's really, if you look deeply enough, you can see there's so much within the picture itself. And so I like what it says too. It says, as you think, you feel. As you feel, you radiate. As you radiate, you create. So let's start with some fundamentals. HPB in the Secret Doctrine says, Parabrahm, absolute, rootless root, one true reality, Sat. And that's the field of absolute consciousness. And I think the important part here is we usually hear Sat Chit Ananda. And it's because it's always about the Trinity, the Holy Fire and the Holy Trinity, which develops everything in creation, everything in manifestation. And that's what the square on the bottom symbolizes. But again, you have the triangle pointing up and the triangle pointing down, because it's one is Shiva, Shakti. So the feminine principle and the masculine principle always have to be together in order to have the square on the bottom or manifestation. So again, just as pre-cosmic ideation is the root of all individual consciousness, so pre-cosmic substance is the substratum of matter in the various grades of its differentiation. Hence, it will be apparent that the contrast of these two aspects of the absolute is essential to the existence of the manifested universe. Apart from cosmic substance, cosmic ideation could not manifest as individual consciousness, since it is only through a vehicle, upati, of matter that consciousness wells up as I am I, a physical basis being necessary to focus a ray of the universal mind at a certain stage of complexity. Again, apart from cosmic ideation, cosmic substance would remain an empty abstraction and no emergence of consciousness could ensue. The manifested universe, therefore, is pervaded by duality, which is, and as it were, the very essence of existence as manifestation. And I think the reason she really emphasized the E and the X like exoteric means it's out in the public and it's really objective, right? Whereas esoteric is more subjective and you really have to sit with it and contemplate it in order to really grasp the beauty within it or the truth within it. Oh. Okay, so Chit and Ananda, consciousness and bliss, the play of light. And I really like that picture, but we don't really have to talk about it. I think it's enough by just looking at it. More fundamental propositions. So HPV goes on to say in Isis Unveiled, nature is triune. There is a visible objective nature, an invisible indwelling energizing nature, the exact model of the other, and its vital principle. And above these two, spirit, source of all forces, alone is eternal and indestructible. The lower two constantly change, the higher third does not. Man is also triune. He has his objective physical body, his vitalizing astral body or soul, the real man, and these two are brooded over and illuminated by the third, the sovereign, the immortal spirit. When the real man succeeds in merging himself with the latter, he becomes an immortal entity. All things that ever were, that are, or that will be, having their record upon the astral light or tablet of the unseen universe, the initiated adept, by using the vision of his own spirit, can know all that has been known and or can be known. Some light humor, I just thought it was really funny. And, you know, if we have a lot of density, because a lot of the philosophy that we're studying is very dense, we really need to bring in the humor. And that's what this is about. So we just looked at very deep fundamentals. And so this kind of like lightens the mood. So a photon checks into a hotel and is asked if he needs any help with his luggage. And he says, no, I'm traveling light. Get it? Because light is really fast and can't really take on anything from the material world. So I love Nikola Tesla, and I really truly believe that he understood Fouhad on a very deep level, personal level. So these are three of my favorite quotes from him. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence. Our virtues and our failings are inseparable, like force and matter. When they separate, man is no more. So we had just heard about how the propositions require these two aspects to coexist in order to manifest into reality, into this physical reality. And it's because of Fouhad that that's possible. Fouhad makes all of it possible because it's the bridge and propeller linking Mahad spirit to matter, subject to object. And so the picture in the background with all that, the electricity, I just love, because that's how I perceive Fouhad. So Mahad and Fouhad. Mahad or Mahabuddhi, supreme divine mind, collective of divine and spiritual cosmic intelligences, intellect and thought. I would say it's the Holy Father from the Holy Trinity. And Fouhad, divine electricity, universal propelling vital force or cosmic prana. I would say it's the Holy Son. So she says, well, she writes the stanza 5 and from the Secret Doctrine, Fouhad is the steed and the thought is the rider. He passes like lightning through the fiery clouds, takes 3 and 5 and 7 strides through the 7 regions above and the 7 below. He lifts his voice and calls the innumerable sparks and joins them. So again, we have a picture here that Fohad, a steed, is basically a highly spirited horse. So it's the vehicle that the cosmic ideation has to take in order to join matter and spirit, or objective and subjective. To see a world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wild flower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. It's a beautiful poem by William Blake. So Chit is consciousness. It's also awareness, intelligence, knowledge, and sovereign power. Consciousness is the active one. It's always moving, so it has this momentum going. But even beyond that, because consciousness, I would say, is even beyond the movement, and we'll see why later, it also is within the stillness. So one's awareness, it's really the true witness and the true observer observing itself. Everything in nature and beyond contains consciousness, because consciousness is within the atom itself. Every cell, the blood within us, all of it is consciousness. So this is because the experiencer is gathering the information, because it's all about understanding and seeing what happens with the different probabilities. Process of becoming self-conscious is what the purpose is when we're going through the evolutionary cycle. So from being the atom that creates the organ, right? It's all a process of evolution. So from the mineral, we go into the non-mineral, which I mean is like the spiritual, truly. And I have a graph to show that. And I put a star here because to me, consciousness really is that bright star. It's that light of information that truly is gathering, but also giving information. It's part of manas. It is manas, mind, cosmic mind, with the K really symbolizes it's not even part of the material plane. It's beyond that. Mahat is cosmic ideation. Differentiates by emanations and through the levels of awakening leads to self-remembrance. So it's all about that process of becoming. It's about the process. And so this is an esoteric axiom from Cosmic Mind. That's where I got it from. Whatsoever quits the laya, homogeneous state, becomes active conscious life. Individual consciousness emanates from and returns into absolute consciousness, which is eternal motion. So now I sat with this for a while and I broke it down on a deeper level. And so this is what I came up with. The laya is oneness in its perfect essence. From the verb root li, to dissolve. It is the center point of all manifested reality, the sacred center that connects all. Prakriti, substance, is unable to act or differentiate from this laya point, stillness. So we have different layers of consciousness within Chit. Well, Chit is layers of consciousness. If we want to understand it and study it, we have to see the different layers. And so this quote is from the Brahmanical Book of Evocation. And it says, power belongs to him who knows. And I like this picture in the background because it really conveys the idea that it's really not personal. the layers are all there. The layers are all present within us. Every single one of us has all of these layers, and all of the information that ever was or will be is available to us, every single one of us. So the picture in the background here is showing someone being hooked up to electrodes because they're studying the brain. And so what I want to say about this is that the mind isn't synonymous to the brain, because the brain is the physical electrochemical organ of a living being. It's what I want to call the antenna. So I see the brain as the antenna, but it's not the mind. So manas isn't localized, since it is multidimensional, or rather transcendence. We can learn a lot from studying the brain. However, we must reach higher. We must reach for more, a deeper understanding and awareness of self. True awareness comes from self-inquiry. Meditation, concentration, and contemplation are the tools. So because we were looking at someone being hooked up to electrodes, I said, let's kind of understand what they're looking in there for. And so when you're hooked up to electrodes, these are the images that you're going to get. And so they're studying the different brainwave patterns. And because we've been studying these, we know that there are different levels or layers to our awareness. And so we have delta, theta, alpha, beta, and gamma. And so in the delta, we're in very deep sleep. And I say that the deep sleep allows for deep healing. It's regenerating the physical body in order to prolong life or to keep living. Life always wants to keep going. And so it is through the delta area that we are able to do that, because we're in a very receptive state. So spirit can really communicate or do its magic, right? So in theta, that's also a healing zone, but it's less deep. So we're in dream mode. We're going through the rapid eye movement, REM. And so we're literally dreaming and healing on a more psychological level, not so much on a deeper physical level. Alpha is when we're awake, but we're calm, rest, and relaxed. So when we're reading a book and we just want to wind down, that's alpha. We can also daydream in alpha. And usually when you're driving a car in a road that you're used to, you go into the alpha state and you start to daydream to the point that you'll actually get to the destination, but you're not even sure how you got there because you weren't even paying attention, which is kind of dangerous if you think about it. So, but it has this, driving has this effect on us. It's sort of hypnotic. In the beta, it's when we're awake, alert, and working. So when we're teaching, like I am doing now, I'm in my beta brainwave pattern stage, I assume, right? And the top one is the one that transcends the four. And how I really describe it is, it really is the blending of the four other layers, because it's the turiya state. It's the oneness, it's samadhi. And so when you are a really good meditator, you're gonna be able to get to the gamma. And I think that it's possible for everyone to get there. It takes our effort though. So our willpower is the key. And so between the alpha and the theta, we have this very sensitive, critical stage. It's the bridge, it's the transition, hypnagogic state. So in this state, when you're waking up, instead of getting up very quickly, I think the better thing to do is to lay there and and really use that time, because it's so sensitive and so precious, to get messages from your higher self. And so I created this chart, and I will do my best to describe what's here. So in the left column, we have kingdoms of nature. So from the mineral on the bottom, we go into plant, animal, human, astral, planetary, and solar. Then we have the domain column, and the higher three, the solar, planetary, and astral, are part of the subjective domains of life, whereas the animal, plant, and mineral are part of the objective domains of life. And that really means that it's you're not really aware of being conscious at that point. And then when you get to a human, that's the bridging domain. So you are both objective and subjective, and you're able to go between these two by will, or it just happens naturally. In the higher ones, it's really subjective. So it's beyond our understanding at this point, unless you're enlightened, right? So principles. The 7 principles that we are taught in Theosophy are Sthula Sharira, Prana, Linga, Sharira, Kama, Rupa, Manas. Now with Manas, we have the lower Manas and the higher Manas. And the bridge of these two, higher and lower Manas, because it's really one, is the Antaskarana. And so after that, we have Buddhi and we have Atma. And so I actually put in Tamas, Rajas, and Sattva, because we have to have these 3 qualities within us in order to have this experience. And so we can talk about that in the discussion if you want, but for now, I think I've said enough about it. And then we have the elements, and I wanted to include the alchemical symbols because we're talking about consciousness, and consciousness really works in symbolic language. And so we have Agni, or fire, we have air, we have water, and we have earth. The Akasha that I put in the middle is really because Akasha makes all of it possible. It is the container for everything. And so it's bridging everything together. And so the last column is state of consciousness. In the square on the bottom, we have deep sleep, dreaming, and awakening. Whereas in the middle, we have deep sleep, dreaming, and awake. It's sort of like a reflection of each other in a way. So when we're in a deep sleep, that's actually when our spirit is awake. When we're dreaming, we're just dreaming. And when we're awake is when our spirit is sleeping, but it's really never sleeping, I would say. It's actually not in our conscious awareness. And so the triangle on top with the Om symbol has the AUM, because it's really about the transition between these syllables. It's just, you have to feel it in order to understand it. And I could probably give a whole class about that, but I'm running out of time here. So Turiya is where everything kind of blends into oneness. And I put a little thing in the bottom here. It says, the indivisible point, limitless and unknowable, is concealed by the veil. So this is from the Mandukya Upanishad, verse 7, about Turiya or Samadhi. Not inwardly cognitive, nor outwardly cognitive, not both, wise cognitive, not a cognition mass, not cognitive, not non-cognitive, unseen, with which there can be no dealing, ungraspable, having no distinctive mark, not thinkable, that cannot be designated, the essence of assurance, of which is the state of being one with the self, the cessation of development, tranquil, benign, without a second. Such they think is the fourth. He is the self Atman. He should be discerned. So now we're gonna look at different things in order to play with the idea of consciousness. And so one of my favorite authors and late psychiatrist, his name is David Hawkins, and he was a leader in the field of consciousness research. Beautiful material he's got. So I really recommend anyone to really go study this, because he really understood consciousness on a very deep level, very personal level, I believe. And one of my favorite quotes from him is, "That which is true is free and available to everyone." And I got that from the Map of Consciousness Explained. One of my favorite books is actually The Eye of the I. That was perfect, I thought. I didn't read the whole thing, but I'm skimming through stuff. So letting go of our need to control things is really what he talks about in his book, Letting Go. And it's the Pathway to Surrender, I believe that's the title. And so I found this by Googling, doing my research. I really like the fact that instead of a line, it's a circular diagram, and it's the rainbow's colors, right? It's just perfect. And if you want to really study it, I invite you to Google David Hawkins and emotional scale or something like that to get this image, because that's how I got it. It was from Connie Chandler, and her friends actually put it together because this is what she saw in meditation. And again, that which is true is free and available to everyone. That's what that means. If you meditate, you can really have access to information, to all information. But that takes effort. It takes your willpower in order for you to get there, and in order for you to get something like this to come to you. And I really enjoy the visual, so I hope that you do too. The best part is that source is that middle point. So this is from Ryan Weisgerber, and I put the link to his blog post, so you can go read about that. But this is what it shows, the visible spectrum of light. He's actually making it so we can understand the spectrum of human consciousness, because he's taking it from Force versus Power, I believe the book is, from David Hawkins. And so if you look at the diagram, you can really see that it's on the 200 level is the critical transition from destructive to constructive energies. And that calibrates for courage. And so what Dr. Hawkins did was he used muscle testing in order to calibrate tons of material, specifically consciousness, but not limited to consciousness. And so this really shows like his life study. So he found that shame is the least helpful energy, because it calibrates at 20. So if the critical point is 200, and that's courage, 20 is very low. But then again, enlightenment is really high. He found that it was above 600. So from the 700 to the 1000 range is the enlightenment. So it does take a lot of effort to get there, but it's there and it's within you. Everyone's already enlightened. It's really about peeling away the layers in order to really get there. But you already are there. And that's the beautiful part and the paradox, right? And I love paradox because I see life as a paradox. And so I just love these visuals because it really goes to show you that it's possible for everyone. and it's all energy. So let's talk Carl Jung. I love him, of course. He was a wonderful psychologist studying consciousness. And these are three of my favorite quotes, not limited, of course. And they read, "In studying the history of the human mind, one is impressed again and again by the fact that the mind is the widening of the range of consciousness." For that one, you can actually play with, well, is it the mind or is it the consciousness? So I think it's really about a personal understanding of it. And I don't believe that there is a wrong answer. Another quote, "Emotion is the chief source of consciousness. There is no change from darkness to light or from inertia to movement without emotion. Language is originally and essentially nothing but a system of signs or symbols which denote real occurrences or their echo in the human soul." He really understood the psychic layers of us, and he worked in the psychic astral plane in order to have an understanding of consciousness, but more than that, in order to help people become whole again. And he talked a lot about the shadow aspects and the archetypes that we have. And when we are talking about consciousness, we really have to think more abstractly in order to get anywhere, right? So we have to think of the abstract archetypes that are already within us. So collective unconscious are archetypes, primordial images that reflect basic patterns that are common to us all and which have existed universally since the dawn of time. I believe that collective unconscious is actually universal consciousness. So it's unconscious to our normal awake doing things mentality, but it's never really unconscious. It's only unconscious if you're not contemplating. And when you're contemplating and meditating and concentrating on these things, it becomes conscious within your level of consciousness. So the basis for shadow work, this is the diagram that shows that, I believe, because it's about becoming the whole pie. And so we have these 12 archetypes from the innocent sage, explorer, outlaw, magician, hero, lover, jester, everyman or everyday person, caregiver, ruler, and creator. And we have all of that within us. But sometimes we want to just wear one mask, right? So sometimes when you're dealing with a certain person, you're wearing a specific mask. Whereas if you're dealing with someone else, you'll wear another mask. And the point is that we have to be aware of the different masks that we constantly put on in order to go into the self, which really transcends all of the masks and all of the archetypes. And the point for this is that there are sections. There are 4 specific sections. The first, on the left upper, we have provide structure to the world. The lower left is connect with others. The right is leave a mark on the world, and upper right is yearn for paradise. I really love to be in that area, but it's not okay because it's not balanced. And the point is that we have to be really balanced within ourselves. And this is like a break for me so I can take a breather, right? And so I don't think that it's important who says what, but true healing is not the fixing of the broken, but the rediscovery of the unbroken. Transformation is a complete uprooting before becoming. Quiet the mind and the soul will speak. And I believe that the soul speaks through our emotions. And so this is about wholeness. The electromagnetism of consciousness and bliss leads the photic energy to attract us to the object that will allow us to heal and reawaken, achieving divine union with self. And that's really the point. It's really about achieving divine union with the self. It's about becoming whole again. And that's what the magnets, the picture of the magnets show. The South wants to join with North always because it wants to become whole. But once it's whole, like attracts like. So when we do our healing work, we don't have to look for someone else to help us do that healing work because we're already whole within ourselves. And so we can really go find someone who is at that level or close to that level and have a truly beautiful partnership, a truly divine union with another, because we're already in divine union with the true self, which is within. So that's what I'm trying to say with this. The point of shadow work is to become whole again, reintegrating the unacceptable and unloved aspects. We do this through our relationships. We attract those who will mirror our shadows in order to heal. And so that's really the point. It's really about uniting and becoming whole. And now we get to Ananda, bliss. Peace, love, creative presence. I really believe it's really about the creative presence. And so this quote is from Deepak Chopra from his book, Quantum Healing. And it reads, "There is no more beautiful experience than when the world expands beyond its accumulated limits. These are the moments when reality takes on splendor. The Veda calls such an experience Ananda, or bliss. It is said to be another quality inherent in the human mind, but covered by layers of dulled awareness. Bliss is, like transcendence, the bliss of Aditi." Aditi is space, cosmic space. It's the Divine Mother's light, which nurtures and nourishes and allows for manifestation to happen. Container of the full spectrum of potentialities. It swells with the I am I consciousness. Power, Shakti, to expand from within itself and along with itself. Soul of Divine Mother, universal oversoul, enjoys the ability to create or expand, but it's really about the love that it has for creation itself, for the ability to know itself. And so that picture really, to me, symbolized what Aditi is. So more about bliss. A unitive state of consciousness, boundless and expansive experience, allowing us to sense the infinite power. And I really wanted to stress the experience. It's really about the experience. It's more on a sensual level. Sutra, the unifying glue thread connecting message, messenger, and receiver. This is what going into the state of bliss really allows us to do, become one with the all. The expansive experience of love, peace, joy, and creativity. Presence that allows individuals to enter the zone of harmony. It's the music of the spheres, harmonic resonance that can actually be felt and known. It's also the rainbow bridge, linking the individual and collective oneness. So once you link and really merge your consciousness with the collective consciousness, you're in that oneness consciousness. So there's no longer two, there's just one. One of my favorite artists, Alex Gray, he's a visionary artist. And if you don't know who he is, please check him out, check out his stuff. I absolutely love visionary art because you can feel something within us, something within you change when you really observe these visuals. Like the one on the left side, it's all the eyes and all of the eyes. And the reason why this is personal to me is because in the field of hypnosis, I've seen this visual. And so when I saw him create this artwork, it was like, oh my God, yes, he understands. So I like the fact that he incorporates fire, because the fire is what we perceive as the spirit. It's the flame within. And so when we're peeling away the layers of conditioning, we get to that flame within. And so that allows us to have that expanded awareness. And I think that it's not only art, but it's also music. It's all of the creative fields. So I hope that you enjoyed this visual. The goal of life is to make your heartbeat match the beat of the universe, to match your nature with nature, said by Joseph Campbell. A few passages from the Bhagavad Gita. So this is a compilation that Raghavan Iyer edited. So it's the CGP edition. And I put the page where I got it from. So with one's mind thus absorbed, one sees me alone in oneself and sees oneself united to me, the self of all, like light united to light. That's from the Uddhava Gita. The man who is happy within himself, who is illuminated within, is a devotee and partaking of the nature of the Supreme Spirit. He is merged in it. That was actually judged from his rendition. And it's the same thing used with different words for this one that I'm going to read. The yogin who finds his joy within, who delights within, and is likewise illumined within himself. He realizes Brahman and attains to bliss in Brahman. That really talks about a nirvanic state. He who does not care for heaven, but is contented where he is already in heaven. And that's from H.P. Blavatsky. And so I put a picture of her too, especially because today's White Lotus Day. So a little quote from Albert Einstein: there are two ways to live, as if nothing is a miracle or as everything is a miracle. And it's really a personal choice what we want to view life as. And I was inspired by this to write this poem. It's titled Atma Buddhi, and it reads, love, the great alchemical essence, forever fusing together as it expands. Sacred marriage where two become one. Devotion leads inspired soul to take life, just as the one spirit permeates all. By radiating its essential ray, just so moon experiences and expresses sun's creative spark. Sighing love's cosmic mystic sutra, expansive breath, through the webs interwoven, thread of law. Sat, Chit, Ananda. Consciousness is a state of bliss, just as bliss is a state of consciousness. Together forever, merged and balanced, they are Sat, the one true reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Okay. There you go.
Great. Does anyone have any questions?
Less than an hour.
Well, first of all, I just want to say that's a beautiful, beautiful poem you wrote.
Thank you.
We need to print it out and put it up on my wall somewhere.
I'm glad you liked it.
That's a wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Susan, this is Ken. I also want to say thanks for this amazing presentation. I was screen sharing it to my TV from my telephone. So that's kind of, I was mostly not seeing my face. Amazing. Wow. Thank you.
I'm parched. So I'm gonna drink.
Wonderful. I love many of the quotes that you quoted. I took some pictures already.
Well, you didn't
when you,
have to. I'll just send it to you.
I know, but I have them separately. When you say, do we have questions? I have so many questions that, you're talking about the shadow, that's a circle, that would be a bunch of questions there. So I don't know. There's a lot to ponder, to re-listen to, and then to ask you questions.
Okay, I'm always available. I love questions. I know.
Susan,
I know that it was a lot to take in. I get that, and the thing is that I wanted to do both Chit and Ananda justice, and I think that we have to really sit with these things and really contemplate them and really absorb it, because you already are that. You are that Chit and Ananda. You are that.
Susan, I wanted to go to one of the earlier points, which was that the mind and the brain are distinct from each other, that manas is not the same as our physical, little cortex there, the gray matter. And it seems to me that a lot of Western neuroscience people have the opposite view, that, consciousness and thought is purely, an epiphenomenon of our organization. And I'm wondering, is there any way to really make a crack in the armor, a chink in the armor of these guys' arguments, these materialists, or just let them be and say, okay, they'll grow up, they'll get out of kindergarten and elementary school when it's time for them to get up out of that elementary school level of thinking about consciousness in the mind, and just let them be and not try to waste my time and argue with them.
Yeah, I think that it's a personal decision, honestly, but I don't think that it's necessary to beat someone over the head, and to try to have them see things our way. I think that that's the beautiful thing about life, is that we're the prism. Like the true us, the true being, is just observing from one level of the prism, from one triangle within a prism. So it's observing life from that perspective. But if it chooses to elevate that, you can have a different perspective. You can color the world with a different crayon, right? So everyone will get the understanding. It's part of the evolution. We don't really have to do anything. It's natural law, because we already are enlightened. So whether we are aware of that or not, it's part of evolution.
Hey, Ken, I have a different take on that because Susan and I have had this kind of conversation before. This is something that Jyoti had brought up to me. Well, not to me personally, but had said in one of her lectures, right, at the old ashram.
Yes.
And she was talking about gravity, and she was talking about Isaac Newton. Now, stuff fell for hundreds and thousands of years from high to low, right? It was always falling. Leaves were falling off of trees and apples were falling off of branches and everything else. But in 1600 and whatever, Isaac Newton said, hey, wait a minute. Stuff's falling. It's not floating. It's not going up. It's going down. And she was trying to point out that it was just an accepted fact that everybody who was alive in the 1400s and the 1300s and the 1200s and the whatever just said everything falls. And then suddenly Isaac, and we give credit to Isaac Newton, but I'm sure others were going through this as well, right? Which was, why is it falling down? Why does everything only fall in one direction? Why isn't it falling up? And so the consciousness of humanity had to shift for Isaac Newton to be given credit, right, for the fact that stuff is falling towards the earth rather than floating off into space. And so if we all had brains in the 1300s and the 1400s and the 1500s, then therefore that's not the thing that caused the shift in consciousness per se, right? That something else must have happened. And so that's where, you know, when you're asking about the people, I mean, and I'll be honest with you, I used to be one of them, right? Before I kind of found theosophy and started growing up spiritually, right? I used to buy into all of that stuff too. Someone would say, you know, we all evolved from amoebas in the ocean. And then I would just go, oh, okay, that's what it was, right? That makes all the sense. And then they would say, oh, we all evolved from monkeys and we just haven't found the missing link yet. And I would go, oh, okay, well, that's what it is, right? But now the consciousness in us, as we study this, starts to shift, right? And I would agree with Susan that we don't need to go out and tell other people, you know, think differently or whatever. But I liked that anecdote that Jyoti shared, right? Because it really kind of woke me up to consciousness isn't a thing that we all experience the exact same way, right? At the exact same time, the exact same way. And so the way in which some of these materialists might look at it, right, will just be, oh, the brain creates this construct and that's just because that's all they've ever been taught and they've never thought of anything else. And just by pointing that out to me, it got me thinking, yeah, I never really thought of, you know, this law of gravity. Someone told me when I was 4 what the law of gravity was. You know, when I tripped and fell and scraped my knee, that was the law of gravity working. And I didn't need to know anything else, you know? So that's how I kind of look at this is sharing anecdotes with people and seeing like what Jyoti did with us, right? And seeing what it does to their consciousness and how they approach the, you know, everything after that.
I just wanted to add that while the Christian fathers back in the day were preaching that the stars in the sky were actually angels holding up lights connected to sticks, that the Persian world had already mapped out most of our physical universe. So there was intelligence, but we have to look at, you know, I think we don't give ourselves any opportunity to grow when we are via fear or, you know, being restrained by social and political constraints. So, but that creative mind wants to know. It always wants to know and to grow. It's part of the universal compulsion to know. Then we're part of that. So I agree. Again, I'm in the middle here because it's going to happen whether we know it or not. Right? We're going to grow no matter what. You know, even bigoted people, if you put them in and raise them for 3 months in a family that they're bigoted against, they're going to develop an appreciation for that family because they're exposed. And when we deny ourselves that exposure, we're denying ourselves access to that experience, which is so darn important to learning. So I just wanted to add that yeah, the Persians had it, we didn't.
That I would say the ancients had it, but we really have to understand that the ancients are within our DNA, you know, and so it's already within us. And that's something that I would have brought into this presentation, but for time's sake, I didn't know I would have enough time. But the DNA contains the consciousness. And so the DNA is the link that goes into our ancestors. And so that really shows that the ancestors and us, not separate, we're one and the same.
They're streams of consciousness. They really are just streams moving through.
It's all the stream, and consciousness really is the light.
So, and two, even though you have, and you can speak to this Aquarian age coming up, even though we had these silos, these scientific silos and religious silos, this Aquarian age coming in, those silos are going to start to connect with each other. And you'll see it happening, you know, in a gradual basis, but the religions will start coming together. The sciences will start coming together because they have to in order to be able to fill in those gaps where the knowledge is you know, just isn't there. They need to start converging into one science and one kind of philosophy, I guess. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's an Aquarian thing.
And we're just
Susan. Oh, go on.
stepping our toes in there now. So,
Susan, I wanted to go back to the logarithmic graph of consciousness. Mm-hmm. You're talking about you know, the Hindu words about consciousness, and then the kind of a comparison of consciousness to light. is there any comments in what you read about thought fields that between our physical bodies and our physical brains, like a radio wave, there's emanations of thought energy, a thought wave, which would be like electromagnetic, radio waves and that sort of thing, but a different quality of wave?
There's a lot of material out. Consciousness is like such a vast topic, and we can study it from different views. And so a really good book about that, I would say, would be Entangled Minds.
I don't know that. Entangled Minds. Okay. Mm-hmm. Got it. Thank you.
But even more than that, I say, go to David Hawkins. Go to David Hawkins. Okay.
Susan?
Yes.
I think you brought out this connection between subjectivity and objectivity. Normally, when we think of states of consciousness, we think it's just kind of this random stuff and it all happens to us and it's somewhere in our head someplace. But you're outlining it out as not random and something pretty studyable and scientific, so forth. And also you do a thing where you say, you bring out the idea of the subjective in a way that I'm not so used to thinking of, and I appreciate that. Whereas you say it's all within us. So all these states of consciousness are within us, including these transcendental states of consciousness, these synthetic states of consciousness, and so forth. I don't know if there's a question in there, but I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about, and then you talked about the Fohat, and I think you did a wonderful job of connecting the subjective and the objective. I was wondering if you could say anything more on that.
On Fohat?
Yeah. Well, here's my thing. Yeah. Is another thing you said is you talked about reaching these higher states of consciousness. You didn't make it sound like it's for the lazy.
It's not. It's not for the lazy.
Yeah. So there's a certain willpower in there. Is there something that's Fohatic about will?
Our true will is based on Fohat. Because we can't even have a body if it weren't for Fohat, right? And it's also the love, because Fohat is also mentioned, as you know, to be arrows, right? So it's the love that makes everything possible. So that's why, I wanted to say, well, consciousness, let's say consciousness is in the left side of the brain, linear thinking, and bliss is in the right side of the brain, creative field. But that would do it on injustice, because it's neither of those, because that we're trying to limit the unlimited. We're trying to limit the transcendental, right? Because consciousness and bliss are both transcendent of anything that we would want to box it in. It is what joins us to the all, to the absolute, to that which we believe we can't know, but I believe you can know, because it's already within. So the energy of Fohat, it's also connected to the Kundalini, right? Which I didn't talk about, but it's the issue with that, I believe, is that if we're not ready, it can literally kill us because it's that powerful. So if we're activating that frequency within our physical body, and the body has not gone through the process of becoming ready for that, that's when you either go crazy, you don't know real from the unreal in this reality, right? Or you go into this epileptic stage, or your physical body just kind of disintegrates because it can't hold it. But it really feels like fire coming through your energetic system. And so that's how I believe Fohat works. It's that divine electricity. And when you feel it, it feels like hot. It's very hot. It's not cold to me. Does that answer that at all, or do you want more?
Well, I was thinking of that that steed. That's you had a definition for a steed, but it was something very powerful. I forgot what it was.
It's a highly spirited horse. So
Highly
it's
spirited
it's
horse.
just a vehicle, right? It's just a vehicle. In order for manifestation to happen, we need a vehicle for that to happen. So a vehicle has to be created. And if it's not for Fohat, the ideation, the cosmic ideation, has nowhere to go. You know? So it's because of Fohat that thought can manifest into a body, because it's all about oneness, right? And so oneness is taking up forms everywhere.
What would you say is the relationship of the study of theosophy to thought?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think that in a lot of ways, there's a lot of logical things that we can study from theosophical material. I'm very new, as you know, to theosophy. I haven't really been studying any theosophical work for more than a year. I mean, I think I started in August, right, of last year. So it hasn't even been a year. But I think one of the things that Blavatsky was trying to instill in people is to not forget that you have the ability to have joy. And so if you do not find joy within reading material, let it go. Let it go. Because you're not going to get anywhere if you're not happy about doing whatever it is that you decide to do. You know, if your heart is not in it, and I think that's really what it's about. I think it's about merging the heart with the brain as opposed to choosing one over the other. And I think that's what Fohat is about. Fohat merges the physical and the non-physical. If it's not for Fohat, I wouldn't be able to take an idea and put words into my mouth and bring it out and speak to you. If it's not for Fohat, that would not be possible. So I think that we use our thinking mind, but we should not be getting stuck there. I think that we should be present and allow what I call the magic to happen. Because in reality, there is no magic. Everything is scientific, right? If we understand electromagnetism, then we can understand how everything works. And I think that Fohat deals with the electromagnetism part. And I think in a lot of ways, consciousness and bliss are the merge of the electromagnetism. I would say that consciousness would be the electricity, whereas bliss would be the magnetism. So you need both, because like I talked about the magnets, they just want to become whole. Did that answer?
Yeah, I think there's a lot there to think about. I'm like Isabel. Now I got to go think for a few lifetimes.
Yeah, let me see if I got that, Susan. So consciousness is like the electricity. So that's kind of the energy. But then the bliss is like the magnetism. So it's that attractiveness and that connection. Yes. Yeah. Okay. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Gene Jennings has a question, being
Really?
the telepathic person that I am. But we'll see if he
I don't know. He's been really quiet.
unmutes himself.
You're evoking the demons. So it's 8:10, and it would not be justifiable, but 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2
Okay.
weeks.
Yeah, I'm going to explain what he means by 2 weeks in a minute. That's very cryptic.
But thank you, Susan. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Is he presenting in 2 weeks? Is that what that's about?
You are.
I can't wait.
There you go.
Oh gosh, that's Jonathan's fault.
No, I think you need to do more presentations for us, for sure.
Well, it's partly Susan's fault because she was the one that said, we need to hear from Gene Jennings.
Definitely.
But I am nothing but trouble. You understand?
I think trouble is necessary, right? Listen, I love Carl Jung, right? So I'm all about taking the darkness as well as the light. We need both. So.
Okay. So from heaven to hell, we shall journey.
Hell is heaven to me. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I think it's important. I think if we, in duality and polarity, we can't have one without the other. So we need both, and we need both perspectives. Like I said, we're observing things from one level in the prism, but we already are the whole prism. We are the diamond. We're the diamond within, and I think that getting to the diamond within, that's the process that we have to take in order to decondition ourselves because of all of the material that we're surrounded by, even through the DNA. The DNA is already programmed. It's our programming.
Okay, so I'll throw in a wrench. I think the DNA is the footstool. I think the DNA is manipulable.
It is.
And not even from the point of view of epigenetics or the neurogenetics or any of that, but I think it's if we have to put it in relativistic terms, I just believe that it's the dirt of the light that the light uses in conjunction with the parents for particular purposes. Mm-hmm. And so that, as you are fond of saying already, that's a book in itself. And so therein lies much of the injustice of, even asking questions sometimes. Again, just because the different perspectives are all valid, but each one has a different perspective. And if they're not aligned, there's the risk of error. There's the risk of disagreement, wherein there need not be the disagreement. And so, it'll be nice. I mean, I'm thinking of everything that's been happening, even back to your first presentation in terms of the avatars, and then what Kirk did, and what's been going on, and then what Susan is doing, and then what's coming up next week. Because I think that the pistis, as apparently confusing as it can be in its, how can I say, classifications, becomes very, very important. It was something that HPB really valued in terms of the particulars that were borne out if one is choosing to literally live the life of an initiate. And so I think therein lies some of the differences between the encounters with light, the understandings of enlightenment, and yet what the path of the initiate from the theosophical side must embrace if they so choose. And that is a series of, progressive deaths, literally, in a good way, that, can just be valuable. So, I'm going to listen next week, and then, then we'll see what I can put together, if it's valuable.
I'm sure that it's going to be great no matter what.
Thank you.
I just want to read a couple of chats here. Thank you, Susan, for a lovely presentation from Miluka. And Paul says, the lazy simply go at their own pace. So there's the defense of the lazy. So which I can go there. So well, gosh, thank you very, very much for your earnest and hard and genuine synthesis and work of these ideas. To me, this subject would have been pretty difficult, and you made it look easy, and I appreciate it. So now each one of these presentations is going to be a dramatic reset, because people in the beginning were starting to ask me, well, how do you do them? And that was when I'd give them the big conspicuous silence, and I'd say something like, oh, I don't know, everybody does it different. And so now people don't ask me anymore because they figured it out that everyone does it different. And and that's the beauty of it, I think. And that's what we're trying to do is, to me, it's like a dialogue from different traditions and from different perspectives. And I think that that's what HPB wanted us to do, is to become genuinely interested in alternative points of view. And each point of view shines lights on other points of view, like the teaching of the monad. So, okay, so let's get down to earth here. So next week, okay, what would you say is Chit and Ananda? Would you say that's Vedanta? What would you say that is?
I personally would not limit it to anything in particular.
Well, nothing's limited, of course. But I thought I saw the guy with the beard kind of nodding that it kind of is. Okay. And then, so from Vedanta, we'll say, to the Jewish perspective, I would say, Judaism, you could say, which is not just monolithic. There's all kinds of different Judaism. There's Orthodox, there's Hasidic, there's modern, there's atheistic, there's all kinds of Judaism. And it's going to be very interesting to hear what Keith has to say, Keith Pritzker, about the Shabbat and the covenant. And as Jean said, 2 weeks from now, we're going to be, it says in the almanac that it's the Pentecost, but we're going to kind of spruce it up the title. We're going to say the Mystic Pentecost and the Pistis Sophia. And Gene's going to help us understand all that. And he says they're related. So we're going to learn how and why. So, and then just flipping ahead here, we're going to hear from Philip Darbanville, Gautama Buddha. And he's a theosophist and I would say a Buddhist at the same time. And I'm sure he'll have wonderful insights, and that's in relation to Buddha Purnima. And then after that, reincarnation and silence. And Kurt Fulkent will help us with that. He might just sit there and not say anything. So, okay.
You just gave away the whole thing.
Oh, I did it again. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming. Thank you, Susan, above all. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Susan. Wonderful
Bye.
presentation.
Hey, everybody.
Adios. Bye-bye all.